essentially, there's been a lot less international competition at Street Fighter events, and a lot of it is kind of chalked up to CPT's new structure isn't like the greatest. I did make a video about this previously, and about how many events there are on top of, I might have mentioned something about like the previous point structure and how it's, there's a lack thereof. And if I didn't, then we're gonna talk about it here now. But really quickly, yeah, it's about winning the events now. The only point systems that are existing now in CPT is the World Warrior events, which in some cases didn't really matter, which I did bring up in my last video about that, where like, XYZ player had a lot of points, but then like I believe it was Nephew won the last one and still got in anyway. So it's kind of like the CPT structure does still need more work, but what we're gonna get into here is just Daigo talking about why there's a lack of, overseas players coming, and is it more lucrative to stay home than to travel to overseas tournaments for the overseas players? Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. You know what I'm saying? What you gotta say, Daigo?
夢のある CPT をみんな回ってるかっていうと、回ってない。ルールだったら、仮に今みたいに SFL が忙しくてもみんな回る。SFL の賞金っていくらだっけ ?100 万ドルにしてくれとは言わないけど、せめて半分。どうでしょう？せめて半分どうでしょう？ SFL に回してもらえませんかね？プロも海外の大会回るより国内で配信イベントやってるのは稼げる時代になってきてますか？まあ、イエスと言わざるを得ないよね。現状を見てると。だから結局、まあ、夢あるわけじゃない。まあ、ちょっとこれについては、俺も話したかったんで、話すんですけど、夢あるわけじゃん。優勝すると、100万ドル、約日本円で言うと1億5000万円で、まあ、夢あるじゃないですか。ゲームで1億5000万円ですよ。で、ただじゃあ、その CPT を夢のある CPT をみんな回ってるかっていうと、回ってない。アメリカ1人、フランス3人、今度のアメリカ今んとこ1人、まあ増えるかもしれないけどね、今んとこ1人で、まあこれってもう、答え出てて効率が悪いんですよ。まあちょっと夢のない話するけどね、夢のない話をするとお金のこと考えたときにめちゃめちゃ効率悪いんだよ。めちゃめちゃ効率悪い。で、だから、まあ、その海外行って勝てる可能性があるんだけど、まあ、とりあえず、目先の勝利がプラスに働く SFL に、取り組みつつ、まあ、配信したりとかするかっていう。
Makes sense.
ことになるわけよ。で、だから、このルールが、まあ、以前のような、なんだ、CPT、要するにポイントをいっぱい集めていって、なんだ、上位者は出場できますっていうルールだったら、仮に今みたいに SFL が忙しくてもみんな回る。これはね、俺かけてもいい。もう 99% 回る。回った人もいるかもしれないよ。もう SFL が一番大事ですっていう人もいるかもしれないけど、基本的にスポンサーが許してくれる。自分もお金にまだ余裕があるっていう人は回る。
That's interesting.
まあ絶対回る。だけど、そこまでするのが、まあ正直、お金的にはもう相当損っていうか、今まあ物価も高いんで、その海外ね、円が弱いっていうのもあって。でちなみに俺は、スポンサーに海外に行かせてもらう。これね、2種類あるんですよ。スポンサーが行っていいよとか、チームが行っていいよっていう、その許可を得て行くタイプの人と、そもそも渡航費がスポンサー費に含まれてる人って多分2パターンあって、まあ後者はあれなのかもしれない。で俺は後者なんですよ。なので、まあ、行く大会っていうのは、まあ、結局自分の意思で決めれて、まあ、行ってもいい。まあ、極端な話をすると、行っても行かなくてもどっちでもいいって言ったらあれだけど、いいんだけども、まあ、っていう立場なんだよね。そう。だけど、まあ、どっちにしろ、まあ、みんな行かないっていうのは、自分個人のお金から出していくのは、もったいない。もしくは、チームが、いや、ちょっと行ってもさすがに、法律が。
It's just too expensive.
で、それに比べて今国内のスト6がすごい盛り上がってる。だから配信すれば、視聴者もそれなりに、今までのね、スト5とかに比べると視聴者もつくし、それで食えちゃうじゃんみたいな。収益上げれちゃうじゃんみたいな。で、海外に行くと、まずその配信ができない。そのロスがある。 で練習も満足にできない。すごい大きいよね、プレイヤーとして。
That's true. Wow, this is interesting. Huh.
なると、もう上下いくらかかってんのよっていう話。要するにお金が入ってこないプラスお金がかかるみたいな。
That's true. You're missing out. Real quick, he's saying so much stuff that a lot of American players already say as it is. Like, I remember during the pandemic, like early on, like for example, Hook Gang God wasn't really traveling like that for any Dragon Ball tournaments like that. And he kept saying, there's even a clip of him saying it, like, you know, why would I travel to a tournament when I can just make a bag streaming? Something to that effect. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, can't really blame him. And, you know, it's not any surprise that they feel the same way on the other side of the world, you know what I'm saying? Because as Daigo said, the yen is weak. Going to Japan is not as expensive anymore, but on the other foot, it's more expensive for them. So it's like, that's why Evo Japan, for a lot of people, is very affordable this year. So, and then on the notion of like practice time, I also agree with that too, as we're moving through this video. You know, 4 minutes in, but like practice time to me is also important. Obviously, I practice a lot. The Japanese players obviously practice a lot because, you know, they're playing in SFL. You know, their Street Fighter League is definitely different than ours. You know, ours is pre-recorded stuff. Theirs is like, you know, they have the luxury of like, you know, playing within the region and actually, you know what I'm saying? They can train for the next match and everything is recorded live. So it's very different for them for their SFL. For us, it's too hard for us to have an SFL like that because we don't live on an island like they do. So that's what makes their SFL a lot greater. Not to mention their SFL is televised, which that might be hard to do on this side of the world. I think Twitch and YouTube is still an effective method of showcasing it, honestly. So it's not necessarily bad. But it's making sense. That's true. If the Street Fighter players think this, then the other niche fighting games also have less of a reason coming from Japan. I agree. It's gonna eventually turn into NA versus NA only tournaments at some point from a lot of the game's perspective. I do think tournaments might end up losing some steam because of this, and tournaments like Esports World Cup will be a lot more prominent because now there's other things on the line. Real quickly, I do also agree with Daigo in the sense that like Street Fighter, like Capcom Cup, could probably lose half the money and just throw it towards SFL. I agree. I think taking the $500,000 and splitting it between NA and Japan SFL would make more sense. And even if they wanted to put more of the half, like even if they want to take the cut and put more of the cut into the Japan version, I wouldn't be upset about that either, mostly because obviously the game comes from there. That's their home region for the game. America's still getting a piece of it, still pretty good. It's just you cut back on the income. They're already funding a lot of money to put the event on at the end of the season, so I think it's okay personally to cut the money in half. Most players wouldn't agree with that, but also most players don't have the ability to win it. So I think if they went back to the point structure and push a little bit more with the SFL and push other things with SFL, I mean, and there's so many ideas for Street Fighter League NA we could do, but we'll finish the video and we'll talk more about that afterwards.
優勝するしかないっていうことで、まあ普通に考えるといかないですよね。普通に考えていかないですよ。で、で、ただじゃあ以前のようなルールにしたときにどうなるかっていうと、まあサウジアラビアのように、大会のように、やっぱり日本人が独占するんですよ、絶対。やっぱ平均レベル絶対日本圧倒的なんで。だから、まあ、で、それを嫌って今のルールにしたと思ってるし、カプコンも。で、やっぱ日本人からすると、いや、もっと日本が強いんだから日本の枠増やしてくれよっていう。
What? Whoa, those some strong words, Daigo. I ain't gonna hold you. Them some strong words. Wow. Okay, hold on. My man Daigo has some strong words here. Capcom, in the end, Japan has a much high scaling bar overall, right? So Daigo states that if they reverted those CPT rules to the way they were before, it'd be like the Saudi Arabia tournament, Esports World Cup, where Japan dominated pretty much guaranteed. Kind of some interesting words, all things considered, that what's it called? You know, Shanghai ended up winning the whole thing. But if he would have said Asia, I'd be like, okay, all right. I ain't gonna really argue with you on that one. You know, I'm not gonna argue that one. You know, saying that the Japanese players were gonna dominate. Like, if they ran back the old CPT structure, then the likelihood of the Japanese players dominating is high. Or in his case, as you can see, he says guaranteed. I'm not gonna say it's high. I'm gonna call a spade a spade. He says it's high. He says pretty much guaranteed. Definitely some choice words, honestly, and I mean, rightfully so. He has his own opinion, and that's okay. And that's what he believes. And to boot, he thinks Capcom made the rules the way that they are now to avoid the scenario of Japan practically dominating the game. I don't know about that. I'm not sure how true that is. Now, granted, in the past, I don't think that holds true, mostly because wasn't it one of the years Street Fighter V, Punk had the highest points in CPT one year? So it's kind of hard to believe that. I think, and even players in other areas too, I think I want to say Problem X. I could be wrong. It's been a minute. I didn't keep with Street Fighter V that heavily, but for what it's worth, yes, Japan definitely had, in previous years, they always had high points, but like Punk was one of the few players who had even higher points than even the Japanese in Street Fighter V at one point. So it's kind of, I feel what Daigo's saying, but I'm not sure how well that would hold up now in Street Fighter 6. I won't sit here and deny that their region is strong, obviously. But much like in 5, I feel like that skill gap is getting closed again. Like it's not that far off. But I do think that there are some cultural things that do set us apart from Japan, which is obviously they spend more time cultivating the scene together and working together and practicing together a lot more than we do. You know, we just sit here on ranked and grind. You can turn on a Mago stream. He's playing against Itazan. He's playing against Daigo. He's playing against Fudo. He's playing against Shuto. He's playing against Kobayan. He's playing against, I've seen so many times where Mago was fighting against what's his name? Kakeru. You turn on a Kakeru stream, it'd be the same thing. They're all playing against each other. Yeah, they fight each other in ranked, but they also play lobbies a ton. I mean, you could just go on their CFN and see the difference and see their wheel where it shows like ranked, training, custom room. They have a lot more time in custom room than they do ranked. Or if not, it might be even for a lot of the players. I think if there was a better middle ground with that, with our players, I think we could probably, in my opinion, avoid this line of thought from Daigo. But that's going to take a lot of structure. That's going to take a lot of work from the higher level players to be able to do that. I think obviously in NA we just try to stay in our lane for what it's worth in comparison to Japan, where like they're trying to push everyone to be good for the most part. And I'm not going to sit and say it's perfect, mind you, but like it's kind of hard to not acknowledge that literally you turn on a stream. I implore you guys watching this, if you were able to stay up late and peep any of the Japanese streams, you could see it. Or if you can't watch it live, that's okay. And even if not, if you can't watch it live, then I would just implore you just to go watch the VODs, and you can see for yourself. Or maybe even in this video, maybe we can do the same. I don't know. We can take a look. But just based on what's being said here, like I'd love to see that, but I think we're just way too far. We're too far away for that, unfortunately, on this side of the world. I can't say the same for any other region. That's not where I live. I live in America. So of course I'm gonna comment on this. But we'll finish the video, see what else has got to be said here from Daigo.
まあ、で、それを嫌って今のルールにしたと思ってるし、カプコンも。で、やっぱ日本人からすると、いや、もっと日本が強いんだから日本の枠増やしてくれよっていうふうに思うと思うんだけど、俺は、まあ、正直これでいいのかなっていうか、今って、まあ、っていうのはその理由が今俺が海外回ってるところにもあるんだけど、結局日本国内だけで完結したら、気も取りするだけなんですよ。終わっちゃうんでどうせ。こんな小さい国でさ、ゲームが格ゲーが盛り上がったところで、たかが知れてるから、目先のことを考えると、海外行かないっていうか、海外のことを考えないのが一番なんだけど、 やっぱり長い目で見ると海外盛り上がってもらわないと困るっていうか、長い目で見るとね。
That's true.
だから、まあ今みたいに日本人はちょっと、まあ、レベルの割に出場するチャンスが少ないっていう部分はあるけど、まあ格ゲーのその全体の盛り上がりを考えると、いろんな国の出場者が出てきた方が盛り上がるよねっていうのは納得できるんで、まあ俺はまあいいのかなって思ってます。いいのかなって、これでいいのかなって。
Ooh. You think it's okay?
そう。で、まあただその一方で、やっぱりちょっと俺はそういう未来が心配なんで、まあ、もちろんね、優勝狙っていってますけど、優勝狙いつつも、プラス、まあ、ちょっと未来が心配なんで、海外には行くようにするっていうのは、
I
あるけど
respect
他の
it.
人たちが行かないのはもうまあ、しょうがない。しょうがない。法律考えたらいけるわけがないんで、しょうがないです。で、それに関してで一個俺が要望があるとしたら、まあSFL も大きいじゃないですか。言うて SFL がなかったら行ってるって人もまあいると思うんで、SFL の賞金、だから、極端だから今、カプコンカップの賞金が100万ドルで、SFL の賞金っていくらだっけ ?10 万ドルもない。多分
Less than 100K to 60K? Yo.
俺はちゃんと把握してないんだけど。でそれを4人で分けるんでしょ。
Nah.
で確かに渡航費こそかかってないけど、
Nah.
かけ
That
る労
low?
力、時間、熱意、いろんなものを考えると、アンバランスなんで。さす
Yo.
がに
For real?
100万ドルにしてくれとは言わないけど、せめて半分、どうでしょうせめて半分どうでしょう
I agree.
50万ドル。しかもそれを4人で割るんですよ。普通はチーム戦の方が賞金高いですからね。せめて50万ドル追加。それが無理なら、だってさ、じゃあ、カップカップの賞金が100万ドルだけど、今ね、もちろんすごいよ。でもこれが50万ドルになったからっつって、暴動起きねえじゃん。
That's true.
十分高額じゃん。サウジもあるし。SFL に回してもらえませんかね。
I agree with
ち
that.
ょっとバランスが悪い気がするんで。うん。まあでもそれでもやっぱり海外の盛り上がりを考えると、オープントーナメントの賞金高くした方がいいってことなのかなわかんないけど。まあ、それは考えがあるだろうからね。そこはね、俺あんまりね、そこまで口をっていうか、まあ、言うつもりはないです。まあ、これは商売。ね、商売、真剣にやってると思う。未来を考えてやってることだと思うんで。いや、これマジで。先週の科学カップで対戦した M ベガのものです。ありがとうございました。最後の100連打の意図を教えてくれませんかこれからも応援してます。勝ちたかったということなんですけど、結論から言いますと。はい、まあ正直ですね、対戦していて、100機種に、対応できない方なのではないかなとお見受けしました。で、ルールが私、1試合取られまして、1試合1試合になったじゃないですか。勝たせていただきますという気持ちになりまして、あなた様が対応できなさそうな機種を対応させていただきました。応援ありがとうございます。
Yo, Daigo, I swear, dude, this guy's become, I don't know, man. Low key, he's always been one of my favorite fighting game players, like, of all time. And like seeing how like open he is about stuff nowadays is very interesting in comparison to how it was before when he was just super quiet and didn't really talk like that. Probably didn't really talk because he's in America, but like these days, like seeing how like vocal he is very interesting. But I after seeing this and hearing what he had to say, I can see his point of view in terms of like the player ability, player skill, and stuff like that. I think it's interesting that he is thinking about the future, and it just kind of makes me feel a little bit more how to put this, it makes me feel a bit more confident, that what I'm doing is right. And I say that like as a player / content creator, like I want, as I always keep saying, I just support fighting games. Like I care about seeing fighting games thrive, whether or not I'm winning in tournament or not. I love the genre that much. I'm just that passionate that I just want to just not see it die. I do think the CPT structure, based on what he said, I do think the point structure was better. I think it is pretty harsh for us to have to win the whole thing to be able to be considered a Capcom Cup. But I see the positives, I see the upsides to it, because, you know, the overseas players used to just come over here and just amass points. You know what I mean? They used to just come over and just dominate. All right, well, top 8's mostly Japan. Maybe 1 or 2 US reps. Maybe if you're lucky, you get 1 EU rep in the top 16, maybe not in the top 8. Speaking specifically Street Fighter 4, winning Street Fighter 5 is definitely, in the beginning, I would say it was a mixed bag, for sure. After time went by, it started to change. But I don't know, man. I just feel like the lack of international competition does kind of hurt the overseas, like the NA or the international comp scene for the game. I think it does hurt just a little bit, because if we're only really going to see them at EVO, then that means we don't really get much opportunity to test ourselves against them. At that point, then you have to take the nomad journey and spend time in Japan to be able to play them on a somewhat consistent basis, which is a big reason why I always say, man, a lot of times I just wish I did have the ability to do that, so I can come back and like report, like, okay, this is what they value in comparison, and like see the difference from playing over there for a period of time and see how I fare now over here. You know, I'm sure I'd probably lose a shit ton of MR, honestly, but I mean, the experience would be invaluable to be able to come back as a stronger player to this side of the world. But my goal at that point would be to be the high level player to give you the insight, as opposed to just, okay, this is just for me. Like, nah, you can consider it like kind of a, you know, an infiltration mission, you know what I mean? Get the intel and bring it back to the States and see people use it. But, you know, we're seeing our current high level players are already kind of sort of close to that anyway. Like, we saw Nephew got 2nd place at Singapore. I mean, that's a full on, for what it's worth, it's an Asia tournament, you know. He pulls 2nd place. That's nothing to scoff at. Now, that also does lead to the question is, do you really need to travel over there for that level of practice if we already have it here? It definitely is a yes and a no. Yes, because it'd be good, because you get to play on their turf. No, because we kind of sort of have it here. The problem with it is, I think our level of understanding of the game is mostly through tournament, and if you just can't do well in the tournament, you can't get what you want out of it, right? So, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's just our way of training now, right? You play ranked, you do whatever, but then you jump into TNS, you jump into Can Open, you jump into CASA or whatever, and it's like you gotta, you know, you want to put forth your best effort to see if everything you learned in ranked is gonna work here. Whereas, so when you play on that side of the world, most likely, you know, ranked is treated as casual anyway, right? So you're still able to you might be able to get a little bit more out of it on that side, because they don't have weekly tournaments like we do. Like, they don't have a TNS over there, they just play, you know, which, you know, it's a good thing. It's one way to practice, obviously, right? So I mean, like, I feel like if we had less focus on, I don't know, it's weird, I can't even say we shouldn't have less focus, but I just feel like if we had more of people getting the experience against the high level players, I think that would change a lot, you know, and that would definitely change a lot. Like, for example, let's say high level players are coaching other high level players or intermediate players to get better for other events. That'd be kind of cool. I thought they did have a TNS equivalent. I mean, they have that Fighting Tuesday thing that they would do with Majin Obama and them, but I'm not sure how far that goes in terms of Street Fighter 6. I know see what they tend to have is more often not bigger events and or streamed events, which I would constantly see, like, you know, again, a big call with a bunch of different VTubers and YouTubers and Twitch streamers, and they just have a mini event with coaching and stuff like that. Like, basically there's more Sajam slams on that side of the world than there are TNS or Can Opener. Does that make sense? But let me talk a little less about that for a second and kind of come back to the lucrative strategy that Daigo's talking about here. I mean, swinging back to that part of the discussion, yes, streaming more is just better. It's just, honestly, you just gotta make more money that way anyway. If you don't win the tournament, that's why you see like Bonchan will go to a tournament, that motherfucker's done, he goes straight to the room and starts streaming. He'll go to his hotel room and start streaming immediately. They all start streaming pretty much immediately, because they're like, all right, well, if I'm in a tournament, I need to make money anyway, so let me go ahead and cut the stream on, try to make a buck. because it just is more lucrative. It just is. Being live all the time with these kinds of events is really good because you're bound to hold down, dare I say, you know, whether you get a coin purse or a bag, it's still holding it down for you when you're not, you know, like if it's holding you down for you where you shouldn't. I guess you're getting your bag or your coin purse regardless, is what I'm trying to say. You know, so if you're not streaming, you're not getting even a coin purse, you know. But if you're streaming while you're there, even for maybe like an hour, like I'm telling you, like I watched like all of them. After the France event, Tachikawa was at some French restaurant just streaming. His stream died, he restarted it every single time, and held conversation with stream chat on his phone. And I'm sitting and I'm like, wow, I'm screwing up. That's why I'm trying to look into investing in a mobile stream setup. Probably during Black Friday, I'm gonna try to see if I can I'll try to see if I can get a new laptop, something pretty strong. So if you guys have any suggestions, feel free to DM me some stuff in the Discord or say, hey Kensou, put in the hey Kensou, check it out, and I'll try to keep an eye on it for Black Friday and see if I can get my hands on it. Because next year I definitely intend to travel to more events, even if I like for what I still want to do. I still want to spend that time in Japan, but I know that's going to be difficult. I'd probably need one other person to go with me to make the trip a little bit cheaper, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. But yeah, I do think still from the lucrative standpoint, how people can make things fandangle for themselves in the fighting game space, you know, we're still growing on a regular basis, and like, you know, that's a good part. FGC content's growing. To round it out, I just agree in the sense that it's a lot more lucrative and safer to stream and play fighting games at home than it is to go to a tournament. Even now, I think the online tournaments service that even better, right? Because if you're playing the online tournament, you can stream your matches. There's no loss. You're still streaming. The only loss is when you go out. All right, cool. I'm out of the tournament. Okay, cool. Guess what? You can still keep streaming and still continue to make AdSense. See what I'm saying? There's still no, there's no L being taken there either. You know what I mean? There's literally no L. So it's just up to you. And what you value. On this side of the world, they still value ranked and all this shit like that. So I mean, that's what's valued here. So if you want to do that, you can go do that too. You're just at no loss of things, is what I'm trying to say. You're no loss of things that you can do in regards to the platforms. It's just whether or not you want to do it. Other than that, yeah, I agree. I'm gonna close it out with that. Pretty much agree with Daigo. It's been like that for a while now, so not really out the ordinary.